crave your indulgence and just take one more round of questions, so we'll go on for about another 5 minutes. Is that okay? That means, because it seems a shame, because it seems an important debate that's going on. So if that's all right, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll mind.
Thank you. Last year, the think tank Reform issued a report which made a very convincing argument that the smaller the force, the more effective it was at dealing with criminal problems. It recommended increasing the number of forces from 43 to 95, which would make them more responsive to local communities. Could I have the views of the panel on that? And also, what they think about the enormous power which has been given in recent years to the ACPO, considering it is actually a private company and therefore exempt from the Freedom of Information Act.
Good question.
There's one in the front here with the microphone.
Oh, okay. We're on the front and then we'll okay. Yeah.
We keep hearing that the police are attacking people who have no connection with terrorism at all, but on the other hand, I have heard that there are many alleged terrorists in prison now, and that so some of these things, some of the police have been very effective on these things. I'd like to hear how many people are in prison now, and how many crimes have you averted, shall I say, and who are these people exactly?
Hi, it seems to me that Ian's a very good example of the benefits of the Barton policing indicates that decentralising some layers of the policing system is a highly good thing, and it rather ties in with the first question. Is there some argument for taking levels of policing at different layers and taking up local ownership of it?
Thank you very much.
Let me deal with the first and third question together. The structure of policing is simply a matter of getting an understanding of what is meant by management, accountability, answerability, or whatever. The number 43 is perilously close to the secret of the universe in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There is no reason whatsoever why there is a Thames Valley police, and then there are 3 police forces in Suffolk, Norfolk and Cambridge, which should be the same size. The key issue is that you need 3 levels. You need a level of local engagement, just like Barton, where the officers are constantly working with the citizens to change what's happening on the street or to protect what's happening on the street. Then there's a level of answerability, which might be somewhere like Oxford, where the chief of police in Oxford should appear in public, perhaps with the local authority chief executive, on a regular basis to answer the questions and concerns of citizens. And then what you want above that is a logical number of police forces, because nobody actually cares which police force they're in. They live in Oxford, they're policed by Oxford. They don't actually care that the same police force polices Banbury, but another police force polices Hereford. It doesn't matter to them. So the number of police forces is the wrong aim. The only reason for reducing the number is to reduce cost. And we might end up, the logical cost position would be about 8 or 9, but then with these structures underneath them that connect to local people. And in terms of terrorism, I mean, this is a very interesting debate. One of the things that's been talked about on the terrorism police powers is the power of stop and search, which is a very different power from the power to arrest people. And that does involve lots of people being stopped and searched and inconvenienced. But in terms of the arrests, I mean, one of the most grave difficulties that faced the police, the government and the criminal justice system in the aftermath of 7/7 was that so many of the criminal conspiracies involving terrorism were linked. So that despite the fact that people were convicted, nothing was said, because there was another trial arriving next. Now that linkage is almost over, and the figures are in my book. It's something in the region of 1,000 people have been convicted of terrorism-related offences in this last 5-6 years. And if we just take one of them, the airline plot, the one which has inconvenienced everybody in Britain, about liquids. The people who were convicted of that at the end of last summer were told by the trial judge that they had been convicted of the most grievous conspiracy ever to appear before a court in Britain. They were sentenced to 35 years plus, because had those planes exploded in mid-air or worse across the Atlantic, the death toll would have been in the thousands, and the effect on the UK economy and community would be catastrophic. And getting that message out is extremely difficult.
Well, I agree entirely with you on the question of force, organisation and size. I don't think the issue is smallness or bigness per se. There's the different layers of problems that are arrived at. And I think that the reason, if small forces are empirically more effective, that they are, is not because of the smallness, but because by and large they're in the less crime-prone areas. Not entirely. I mean, the City of London force is the smallest and it's a highly urban area, but although with a small resident population. But generally there'd be rural forces. So I don't think size is the crucial thing. With regard to the terrorism powers, what I was trying to say is this, that I actually do accept the argument that in relation to terrorism, for all the civil libertarian problems that there are about this, it is necessary to have tougher powers. But the Terrorism Act of 2000 gives the power to stop and search in areas where there's a fear of terrorism, and London is a rolling area for this purpose. There's always in this status the power to search for anything without reasonable suspicion, and it's used generally against people where there's no suspicion of terrorism at all. That I can't see the rationale for.
Very quick, because we have to, we've been asked to go.
Very, very quickly.
Not because we finished.
Don't forget Jack the Ripper, though.
I'll talk very fast.
Yeah.
The problem with the terrorists, it's a very interesting question, and in terms of size and relationships to the people, as Britain becomes more diverse, and there are 320 language groups in London, the relationship with those groups to get intelligence, even for anti-terrorism, is crucial. And the trouble with stop and searches, and Alex Carlisle said so just 2 weeks ago, is that it actually causes more harm and more alienation. We do need the powers, we do obviously want to be safe, but we need intelligence to do it, and that's not a way to get it.
Jack the Ripper.
Okay. Jack the Ripper was not the Duke of Clarence. Jack the Ripper was not Walter Sickart. I can only tell you this, that in Scotland Yard's Crime Museum there is a book which is the work of the officer in charge of the case, who was Detective Chief Inspector Donald Swanson. There was a witness to the third murder, that of Elizabeth Stride, and Swanson issued an order that stayed in place for the next 4 years, that were there to be a savage attack on a woman anywhere in London, of the peculiar barbarity that the Ripper had, then it was to be reported to Scotland Yard. It feels a very modern method somehow, and exactly that happened. A Polish woman was attacked in her house by her brother 2 years after the last Ripper murder. Kosminski is the man involved, Aaron Kosminski, a Polish seaman. He was taken of all bizarre places to the police convalescent home in Hove, where he was confronted with the witness to the Stride murder, who positively identified him. He was declared unfit to stand trial through mental illness, and he died as late as 1919 in Leavesden Asylum in Hertfordshire. And this is all known to all the Ripperologists, but for some reason doesn't get much of a mention.
I just want to thank I'd want to thank you, because I think you could have gone on. It's a really interesting series of papers. And I very much want to thank our distinguished panel, whose books you can buy and they will sign them outside. Thank you very much indeed for a very interesting